Coming to you from the Pacific Northwest, you're listening to Mythic Radio.
The first time it happened, I was sleeping and woke up because I felt a hand on my leg and I realized that I couldn't move.
And he come across this object on the ground, which was the shape of a flying saucer. So he jumped out of his pickup and went down there, and there was 4 beings laying on the ground.
When I raised my head back up, I was turning my head, and out of my peripheral vision, I seen something hop to a tree. And it was tall, about 7, 8 foot tall, and it was black, real hairy, like a gorilla.
The first thing we saw was this winged creature, 14-foot wingspan at least. It was huge. It almost covered half the road.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Nick. Today is Wednesday, September 6th, and this is episode 11. You can visit us over at mythicradio.com and share your own experiences by clicking on the Tell Your Story link. You can also get involved by joining our forum. It's a great place to ask questions and start new topics on what interests you. You can also find us on Facebook at Mythic Radio and on Twitter at Mythic Radio Live. I'd also like to remind you that if you enjoy the show, please click the follow and like buttons. It helps us know what kind of content you find interesting. New episodes of the podcast are available every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and YouTube. Since the mid-1900s, people have claimed to have encounters with beings that they describe as men in black. These visitations typically occur shortly after witnessing some type of strange phenomena, usually associated with unidentified flying objects. In some cases, people have said that they were visited by men in black just hours after witnessing the phenomena, while others were contacted after a few days. In almost every case, the witness claims that the men in black are very intimidating, and their overall purpose is to threaten the witness in order to dissuade them from telling anyone about the UFO or other phenomenon that they encountered. The most unsettling part of the visitation, however, is usually said to be the appearance of the men, typically said to arrive in a black, American-made, early model sedan, and appearing in pairs or groups of 2 to 3 men. They are described as being very tall, wearing black suits, thin black ties, black hats, and occasionally black sunglasses. Upon closer inspection, the men appear to have no facial or head hair, and a complete lack of eyebrows or eyelashes. Furthermore, their skin is said to be very pale, and with odd facial features that include larger than normal eyes, a small nose and mouth, and almost non-existent ears. They are sometimes described as having hair that looks similar to a wig. During interactions with these men, witnesses say that they never change their expression, and others have said that the men never blink. They are also known to talk in a very monotonous fashion, with evenly spaced wording and robot-like pronunciation. Following the Roswell incident in New Mexico, men in black encounters increased, but 17 days prior to Roswell, a man named Harold Dahl had a strange encounter of his own. Many people believe that this is the first contact with the men in black. The year is 1947, and the location is Maury Island, located about 22 miles southwest of Seattle, in Vashon, Washington. Harold Dahl worked on a boat as a patrolman in the Puget Sound, clearing logs that had floated away from the nearby lumber mills. On June 21st, Harold was on his patrol boat with his son, 2 other men, and his dog. At around 2 p.m., Dahl and his crew approached the east shore of Maury Island and witnessed 6 objects floating approximately 2,000 feet above their boat. The objects were described as being made of a reflective metal, as well as being about 100 feet in diameter and donut-shaped. The center holes of the crafts were about 25 feet in diameter, and Dahl said that he could see round portholes. The 6th craft started to slowly descend, while the other 5 remained circling overhead. The descending craft stopped about 500 feet above the water and hovered. Dahl said he pulled his boat to the shoreline because he was worried that the craft was going to hit them. Once ashore, Dahl took several pictures of the crafts. The lower ship stayed hovering over the water for about 5 minutes, while the others continued to circle. One of the ships eventually left the formation and moved down, touching the lower ship. The two made contact for several minutes, until Dahl said he heard a loud thud. Suddenly, thousands of pieces of what he thought were newspapers dropped from the inside of the center ship. Most of the debris landed in the bay, but some hit the beach, and Dahl was able to recover a few pieces. As he inspected the pieces of debris, he found that they were actually pieces of white, lightweight metal. Dahl claimed that the ship also dropped massive amounts of a strange dark metal that resembled lava rock that created large amounts of steam as it hit the water. According to his story, everyone took cover while this was happening, but his son received a burn on his arm from the falling metal. Dahl's dog was apparently severely injured as well, and passed away moments later. The crafts then rose into the air and headed west out to sea together. Dahl tried to use the radio on his boat to call for help, but it did not work. They sailed back toward their dock, and Dahl rushed his son to the hospital. He then contacted his boss, Fred Chrisman, to inform him of what happened. Dahl told investigators that the next morning, a man wearing a black suit visited him and suggested that they go to breakfast together to discuss what he had seen. Dahl agreed and drove his own car, following the stranger's new black Buick to a restaurant. While they ate, the stranger asked no questions. Instead, he gave a detailed account of what had happened to Dahl the day before. The man in black warned Dahl that bad things would happen to Dahl and his family if he told anyone about the incident. In the weeks that followed their meeting, many strange events took place. This included a tragedy that involved the deaths of 2 intelligence specialists with the U.S. Air Force that were investigating Dahl's encounter. On July 8, 1947, the Roswell incident drew the attention of many people from around the world, including these strange mystery men. Many people that had been close to the wreckage or involved with the investigations told stories of odd interactions with the men in black. In 1955, a man named Albert Bender was about to yield some serious results regarding his research into the UFO phenomenon. Albert Bender was the founder of the International Flying Saucer Bureau. He planned to publish his findings in the Space Review. However, Bender was then visited by the men in black. Bender claimed that 3 men, dressed all in black, visited him at his home and warned him against pursuing the topic of UFOs any further. The men left Bender scared for his life, and he immediately shut down all his research and the Flying Saucer Bureau. Many people who knew him claimed that Bender was a changed man after his encounter. His later works were almost unreadable, and he seemed to be in a constant state of panic. He reportedly still received mysterious phone calls with nobody on the other end until the end of his life in 2002. One of the more bizarre encounters with these men took place in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. Dr. Herbert Hopkins was a 58-year-old hypnotist that was consulting on an alleged UFO case. One evening, when his wife and children had gone out leaving him alone, the telephone rang, and a man, identifying himself as vice president of the New Jersey UFO Research Organization, asked if he might visit Dr. Hopkins that evening to discuss certain details of the case. The doctor agreed to meet the man a short time later that evening. He went to the door to switch on the light so that his visitor would be able to find his way. But while he was there, he noticed the man already climbing the porch steps. Hopkins said that he saw no car, and even if he did have a car, he could not have possibly gotten to my house that quickly from any phone. At this time, cell phones were not in existence. As the man entered, his dog reacted strangely. The dog began to bark and then hid in the closet. The man wore a white shirt and white gloves, but his trousers, jacket, tie, shoes, and derby were all black. He appeared not to fill out his sleeves or trousers very well. The crease on his pants remained razor sharp even at the knees when he sat down. As he took off his hat, it was obvious that he lacked both hair and eyebrows. His small nose and small ears were set low. His chin receded, and his face was very pale. In the course of their conversation, the man happened to brush his lips with his suede gloves, and the doctor was astonished to see that his lips were smeared and that the gloves were now stained with what appeared to be lipstick. After gathering information from Hopkins, the man in black informed Hopkins that there were 2 coins in Hopkins' pocket, which was correct, and asked him to remove one. Hopkins complied and held the coin, a shiny new penny, in the palm of his hand. The man told Hopkins to watch the coin closely. After a few moments, the coin took on a silvery appearance and then appeared to be going out of focus. It then began to fade, and eventually disappeared altogether. The man informed Hopkins that the coin would never be seen on this plane again. He then suggested that Hopkins destroy any material that he had related to the case, or else he would meet the same fate as the coin. At this point, the man's speech started to slow down, and he slowly rose to his feet. He then said that his energy was running low and that he must go. Clinging to the railing, he climbed down the stairs, one step at a time. Dr. Hopkins saw a bright light shining up the driveway, brighter than any automobile headlight, and bluish-white in color. Rushing to the kitchen window, the doctor looked out to watch him, but the light was gone. He ran out onto the front porch, but saw no car leaving. Not only that, but the stranger had walked in the opposite direction to the way he had arrived. The doctor remained on the front porch to watch for him, but the man never returned. Hopkins sat down at the kitchen table to digest what he had just experienced, but before doing so, he pulled his revolver out of a drawer, just to be on the safe side. He was so scared that he willingly complied with the visitor's instruction. He went to the other room, gathered all the material from the case, and destroyed every last bit of the evidence related to it. Strange incidents continued to occur in Dr. Hopkins' household, and he assumed that there was some correlation with the extraordinary visit, but he never heard from his visitor again. As for the New Jersey UFO Research Organization, no such institution exists. In a documentary in 2005, well-known movie and TV star Dan Aykroyd admitted to having a brief yet strange encounter with what he believed to be men in black. He told his story during an interview where he talked about his Sci-Fi Channel documentary, which got canceled moments after his eerie experience. Here is a portion of that interview.
Well, what happened? We sold the show to Sci-Fi Channel, and it was called Out There, and I basically interviewed all of the people that I admired in various fields of study, like Colin Andrews from the Crop Circle movement, Linda Moulton Howe, the expert on cattle mutilations, John Mack. And let me just put a pin in things right there, because John Mack has taken the study of abductions, UFOs, right out through the other side, and he's going, yes, we know they're here, we know they're coming, we know people have been taken, we know there's experimentation going on, we know people have been told about agendas. What we now have to do is use that as a key and as a motivation to socially transform this planet to a more peaceful, more loving, more tolerant state. So his movement, the movement for social change, has just accepts as a fact abductions, UFOs, interplanetary intervention, and what he's doing is taking it out through the positive side of it and saying, now we must use it to socially transform. And I think his message is great. But I talked to him, I talked to the Allagash guys who were taken in the canoe on that trip in Pennsylvania. The last show we did, I had both Bassett, who has the UFO time clock, and then Greer. Both Bassett and Greer were there. They were my 2 guests for the day. Well, the show was canceled that afternoon. And I was outside, before I knew it was canceled, in between the interviews. And I was outside, and Britney Spears called me because she wanted me to appear on Saturday Night Live with her. And so I was outside having a cigarette, the phone rang. Oh, Brittany, how you doing? Oh, sure, of course I will. I turned away like this. I turned back, and there was a black Ford across the road, a black Ford sedan. And I was trying to look at the plate, and the plate seemed kind of like fuzzy, and I was, definitely a police car. And 2 guys were there, and a big, tall guy got out of the back seat, and he stood in the street on 42nd Street it was. We were at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, and he looked right at me. And literally, I mean, I was on the phone. Hey, oh, sure, of course I'd love for the show. Saw the Ford, went back like this, turned back like a half second later, and it was gone. And that car did not go past me. It did not make a U-turn, because I would have seen 42nd Street. I would have seen that thing take a U-turn and go away. That car vanished. That car was a cloaked vehicle of some type. And whether this was like a warning to me, because the guy got out of the back seat, gave me a real dirty look. That car vanished. I know what I saw. And, you know, it was just this fast. It was, oh, hi, Brittany, sure. Oh, of course, I'd love to do. Guy gives me a dirty look. Oh, well, sure. Car gone. That's what happened. And then 2 hours later, we were told we were not to continue taping, and the show was canceled, and none of them would air. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Was that an MIB experience? You know, black helicopters, you know, military abductions that happen. Sometimes people are taken and they talk about then being visited by, you know, military personnel and debriefed about their abduction. Was it, you know, was it a technology associated with some of these beings that are visiting that wanted to warn me off, or that wanted to give me verification that I was on the right track? I don't know. But I do know I did turn back a second later, and you know, it takes so long for an automobile accelerating from 0 to 40 miles an hour to reach the corner of 8th Avenue and 42nd Street going past me, and then pulling a U-turn and going out towards Times Square. I would have seen that car. And I looked around. I mean, I was looking for that then. It was gone.
Slightly more recently, on October 14th, 2008, a hotel manager, along with an employee, witnessed a triangle-shaped UFO flying slowly and silently over Niagara's Horseshoe Falls toward their hotel. They described the object as approximately 240 feet long, with 3 white lights on all 3 sides, and a pulsing red light in the middle of it. The craft emitted a beam of bright white light directed down toward the water. As they observed the craft, the light beam began shifting direction and aimed directly at the 2 witnesses. 1 week later, the hotel manager was alone in the parking lot at 1 a.m. when he noticed another black triangle flying in the same direction but at a much higher altitude. 7 months later, on May 15, 2009, 2 men dressed in black entered the hotel and asked to speak with the general manager. The bellman told the men that the manager was not working that day. The 2 men apparently searched the hotel for the next several minutes and spoke to other employees regarding the manager's whereabouts. Eventually the men in black left, but not before being caught on the hotel's security cameras. The next day the manager returned to work, and his staff told him about the strange men that had been asking for him. Upon checking the security footage, the 2 men can be seen entering and exiting the hotel lobby. This is the recording of the interview with the hotel manager describing what his staff encountered.
One of my bellmen approached me, and he kind of had a weird look on his face, and he said to me, can we go in your office and talk? I brought him into my office, and he says, something weird happened here yesterday, and you weren't here. He said, there's a couple guys in here looking for you. And I said, a couple guys? What do you mean? And he said, well, this is really hard for me to say. He said, but there's a couple really strange-looking men that were here. And they kind of freaked everybody out, and they were asking questions about you. And, of course, now I'm getting a little bit nervous, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, they were... He goes, I don't know how to describe them except for extremely odd-looking. They were really, really tall. He said, and they were identical height. They were the exact same height. They were wearing the exact same clothes, and they had the exact same faces, like they were twins. And he said they were wearing black suits, black trench coats. They were wearing like the old-fashioned Federo hats. They had extremely, extremely pale skin. And he said they came in and they looked around a little bit and they asked for you. And I said, I'm sorry, he's actually not working today. And it seemed like they didn't believe me, so they started to walk around the hotel, and shortly after they went to the tour desk, and he goes, I got busy. I started to have to bring cars around and get luggage, and by the time I came back, they were gone. But he goes, they freaked me out, and I really wanted to tell you that there were these weird guys in here looking for you. So, of course, now I'm a little bit skeptical and I'm a little bit freaked out all at the same time. So the first thing I do is I run into my security office, because I know how to work the security system, and I rewound the cameras, and sure enough, here comes two gentlemen through the front door looking exactly how he described. Then the next day, I was talking with my tour guest, and one of them asked to talk to me. She came in my office, the same as my bellman, and she said, I need to tell you about something that happened. I heard that you heard that there were some men looking for you. And I said, yes. And she said, they asked a few questions about you, and they said strange things that I didn't understand. And they were talking about governments and conspiracies, and none of it made any sense to me. But she goes, they were very, very scary. And I said, well, why were they scary? And she said, they had no facial hair, none. She said they had no eyebrows, no eyelashes, nothing. Their hair looked like they had a wig on, like it was attached to their hat, like it wasn't even real. And she said, and the scariest thing, their eyes were so big and so blue that they almost hypnotized me a little bit. And she goes, and you're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but I swear they knew what I was thinking. I swear, and I don't think I'm crazy, but I don't even know how they could do it, and I don't know why I'm even telling you this. She goes, so I started to think about things other than you, and I don't even know if it worked. And she started to cry, and she said one more thing before she left. She said, these men, they didn't blink. Not once did I see them blink.
There have been many other encounters with these so-called men in black, all stemming from the late 1940s and early 1950s. Some of the information regarding these accounts is difficult to locate, while others seem to be common knowledge in certain circles. There are many facets of the men in black phenomenon, having to do not only with UFOs, but also paranormal and cryptozoological encounters. As we gather more information, we'll revisit this topic and discuss additional eyewitness accounts. For me, I still have more investigating to do before I form an opinion either for or against these reports. I believe people are genuinely frightened by their encounters, and I have to think that at least some portions of the stories are true. What do you guys think? Have you seen or had a personal encounter with the Men in Black? Do you guys have theories or explanations as to what the Men in Black really are, or where they come from? Contact me at mythicradio@gmail.com, or by visiting mythicradio.com to share your thoughts. Please join me on the next episode as we discuss the horrifying and supposedly true story of Travis Walton, a logger in Arizona who in 1975 believes he was abducted by aliens. I hope you'll join me. From all of us at Mythic Radio, thanks for listening, and remember, don't wait for the unknown to come to you. Get out there and find it.